Welcome to the AI at Work podcast, where we explore the latest trends and insights from the world of artificial intelligence impacting the work and workforce. I'm your host, Prabakaran Murugaiah, founder and CEO of Mayu AI. And today we have a special guest, someone who has depth and breadth of knowledge of workforce, labor data, recruiting principles, and how to use AI in all part of recruiting as well as job. Mike Wolford. Mike is an industry veteran. As I mentioned,
Thanks for having me.
AI and recruitment is his specialty. Thank you, Mike. Welcome on board. If you can give a quick introduction, that would be helpful.
Sure. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Mike Wolford. I am an account manager at Revelio Labs, and we do labor market analytics. I came from almost 20 years of talent acquisition experience. I've been an agency recruiter. I've been a corporate recruiter. I've been a corporate sourcer. I was the sourcing manager at Twitter. I now spent the last 3 years in analytics. I've written a couple of books. I've written 3. My most recent is called The AI Recruiter. It's with GPT-4, and it shows recruiters and sourcers how to use AI to do their work. And I'm getting ready to publish my next book called The AI Analyst, which is a guide for those of us who don't do analytics who need to, and how to get the AI to actually do those analytics for you. You know what's amazing about AI, though, that's truly I've written 3 books now. I'm writing my 4th, but the first 2 took a year, start to finish. And it took me about 6 to 8 months to actually write the content. With the AI Recruiter, I was start to finish in less than 3 weeks. It is way faster. And not only that, my editor, when I sent it to the editor before I published, he sent it back with a note, like, don't waste my time. The AI didn't make any typos, no grammar mistakes, didn't spell anything wrong, nothing. It was word perfect. At 40 some odd thousand words, it was word perfect.
That's awesome. AI is basically revolutionizing everything, including work and how people use AI. And the next book is very highly particular to how to use AI to improve your productivity. So if you want to give a glimpse, who is targeted audience for that book?
First, it would be talent intelligence professionals and people in labor market analytics. Secondly, would be anybody like a recruiter, a sourcer, an HR professional, a marketing person who needs analytics but doesn't know analytics, can't hire a data scientist. This book is designed to teach the principles of analytics, like what is prescriptive analytics, what are predictive analytics, what are descriptive analytics, and educate you as to what the different types are and where they're appropriate. And then beyond that, how do you get the AI to do these different types of analytics for you? What are some examples of use cases? And then what are the prompts you would need in order to get the AI to do what you want it to do? What kind of data do you need to give the AI in order to get the analysis done that you want? And then finally, what kind of outcomes to expect from this type of analysis when you've provided the AI with a specific type of data? So an example would be you want to understand salaries in the labor market for a particular company, and you would just then add the amount of salaries that they pay over a period of time and then put in the correct prompt, and then you could see the analysis of, in this case, if it was predicting their salaries in the future based on their historical information, we see a 5.2% growth year over year and predict that's what it will be, between 4 to 6% growth in their salaries this year based on their historical data. Normally that would take probably an hour or 2 to do that type of analysis as a human, to get all the data, to organize it, to clean it, and then to actually do the process of analytics to get to the answer. But the AI can handle all of that in seconds typically. We actually do some indexing. We also get publicly available information. And the way I think of it is, do you remember the beginning of the first Jurassic Park where they're going and they're taking the tour and they're showing them how they get the dinosaurs, and they're like, we have, DNA from 1 billion years old, but there's gaps in the DNA and we use frog DNA. I feel like that's what our data scientists here do. They take the big picture, the raw data, right? The original, but there's gaps. And so they take the principles of data science and they fill in the gaps. And what it does is it gives us an idea of a complete picture. And to me, that's incredible. I don't think we've ever had a holistic view of the labor market before. Not like this, not in this detail. So for me, that's the real magic of what these guys do. They take the raw data, the publicly available data, and they get a lot of insights out of that. But then if you're missing salary data, they can take what are your peers making? How long have they been there? And come to an estimate of what you're making. They can also look at data like how long have you been there? What about your peers? How likely are you to change jobs in the near future, right? And evaluate flight risk. So we're able to take real data and create a completeness that offers insights that haven't been available before to us as an industry. And for me, that's really exciting because one of the challenges in talent acquisition, I can't speak to other firms, but one challenge in talent acquisition will be a recruiter will walk in and talk to their hiring partner, and they'll say, well, you want to hire a data scientist. The data scientist costs $120,000 in the market right now. And that manager can come back and say to you, well, we've Mike. Mike's been here for 3 years as a data scientist. We're paying him 100. Can you go find me another Mike? Can we try? And then you just burn 2 weeks trying to find somebody who's smart enough to be a data scientist, but not smart enough to know they're underpaid. And that's a hard person to find. That's where we come up with the term purple squirrel or unicorn. You'll hear recruiters use that. That's what we're talking about. You've given us something that maybe seems reasonable in the imagination or something you can imagine, but doesn't exist in reality. And we get sent after that a lot. And it's because we don't have any good data to say, no, this is actually what the market is. And this is what Microsoft's paying. And here's what Amazon's paying. And here's what Alphabet's paying and Meta's paying. And if they're good enough to get past our interview, they'll be interviewed there. And I'm sure that our company culture is wonderful, but I don't know if they like it more than they like $50,000 more a year or whatever the pay difference is. And so it's finally empowering recruiters and sourcers to have data-driven conversations with their partners in the hiring process. And that is going to make things better for everybody.
Sure. Do you have any data or statistics? How long will it take to hire that particular person? Or what is the kind of a demand index, supply and demand? Hey, for this position, these skill sets, sometimes they may not put a lot of skills into it. Do you have any recommendations when they are writing the job description? Hey, we better change the job title or add this, delete this, like that. Do you have a tool like that as part of your product?
So we can't rewrite it for you. We do have something called market tightness, which talks about what you're describing. And it looks at relative supply, relative demand, relative salary, and then relative motion. Because like in COVID, there was a spike in demand in certain jobs like nurses, truck drivers. We actually still have a shortage of truck drivers in the US. There are 3 nurses for every nursing job open in the United States. So if one job is open, there are 3 potential people that exist that could fill that. For trucking, there are 2 jobs for every 1 person that exists. So when you watch the data, you actually have to watch the section because tech is in recession right now, right? If you were in tech, you would be like, why is the Fed not lowering the rate? We're dying. But if you were in hospitality or healthcare, things are booming. And so this is why it's important because on the news, you're going to get a big picture. And I hate to burst anyone's bubble, but no matter what news you watch, the news is going to be bad. There's no good news. There's no today was better than yesterday. That doesn't exist in the news. They have to say something's wrong, right? And so you're going to get the big picture from the news and it's always going to be bad. And it may actually be, but it may not be bad for you. It may be bad for most people, but it may not be bad for everybody. And that's the nuance that we're getting into now with availability of data. We're able to look beyond just the big picture of what the national economy is doing in a particular moment and look at specific industries and specific companies even to see what's happening at a much more detailed and granular level. That information can give you much better insights. And so for job descriptions, what I would say is not only tell people what they would be doing, but why they want to be there. Why is this an interesting place to work? Why would somebody want this job? Because that's the thing that's going to stand out right now. Because everybody's got qualifications, we're EEOC, whatever. But talk about why. Why is our work important? I remember I was working for a small government contractor, and we're competing against Northrop Grumman and Lockheed, and what was our story? We did government grants for the DOJ and the FBI. What's so exciting about that? Well, one day, one of our grants programs was to get bulletproof vests for law enforcement officers from the FBI or the military when they didn't need them anymore, pass them to law enforcement officers. We got a note from a law enforcement officer who was shot in the line of duty, and his bulletproof vest that he got because of our grant saved his life. You need to find the story. And if that's what's going to resonate in your job description, not that we're AI powered or we're on top of AI, everybody is. You have to be, or you're not going to get to continue to exist. In the world of AI, where it's just generating all of this content, all of this buzzwords, it's really important as a company to find your story of why. Why is our work important? And share that. And you can have the AI automate that story once you tell it the story, and you can have it rewrite it and rephrase it and put it in a haiku or put it in a job description for you. But the fundamental basics of knowing your own story hasn't changed, because if you just go to the AI and say, write me a job description, all you're going to do is save the 30 minutes that you would have taken to write the same crummy job description. And my challenge to those who use this is, rather than simply automate, elevate. Right? Take the time that you're going to get back and invest just a few seconds more into making sure that the outcome is not only as good as what you could have done, but better. A lot of people come into a profession from something else, and we don't get to be creative in our day-to-day roles. This is a chance to unleash that creativity and to really connect with the audience. So my advice in that field would be, find your story, find your voice first, then have the AI automate that message out to your audience.
Absolutely. 100% concurrent with you. I used to tell most of the recruiters, AI is your superpower vehicle, where it can automate a lot of things that you don't need to do, where you can spend more time with the candidate and increase the human touch. So my simple way logic is, AI is going to improve the productivity, but also it is going to unleash more time and power. Being a person, we can spend more time with the other person. So that's the power that AI is going to bring in. How you will articulate that, or what do you think people should do that?
So I can give the example in recruiting, how this will change. And in recruiting, recruiters are actually really hesitant to give up interviews. And I get it. But it's just not humanly possible for us to do our job. If 500 people apply to your job and you have 20 jobs open as a recruiter, the number one reason why you're rejected from a job or you didn't hear anything back isn't because your resume wasn't good. I'm not saying it isn't, but 90% of the chance, nobody ever saw it, because you were applicant number 354 out of 478. And no human being has time to go through all that. And the ATS, despite what people say, is not sophisticated enough to sort for you. It's usually first in, first out. Whoever applied last is on the top, or it's in alphabetical order. It's not really sorted for you. And so that means a lot of people apply to jobs and never hear anything, and they get really discouraged, and it's really challenging. It's one of the worst things people do in their lives, right? Like public speaking, dying, and then getting a job is a new huge stress for people. And this is part of why the AI can help fix that. The AI should be used to help fix that. Phone interviews should be handled by the AI, in my opinion, at this point, because it can talk to everybody. It can ask everybody the same questions in the same order. It can take answers and understand context, and then match the candidate based on the resume, the phone screen, and the job description. And then when you're candidate 367 and you're a 95% match, the recruiter can see that very clearly, because all 500 people had a chance to interview. And even though it didn't do as good a job as a human would do, it does a better job for 470 people than the recruiter was going to be able to do. And for the candidate who's a really high fit, that means it doesn't matter where you apply, you can still be found. And for the recruiter, it means you stop losing the needles you're looking for in that haystack. And so this is the type of thing that AI will do. And I understand the reluctance of giving it up. But honestly, as recruiters, we barely could verify anything anyway. I recruited software engineers. What am I going to be able to ask them? Like, how am I going to validate their skills as a recruiter? It was already kind of stretching credulity. Today, you could interview me for a Python developer over the phone. If I have GPT-4 or Gemini, I'll pass that interview because I'll have the answers. And so we have to rethink about how we validate skills as a profession. This is exactly like real time, what's happening in the job market. How do you validate somebody can actually do something? And so because we no longer can do that as recruiters and sourcers, then we should hand that over to the AI and let it do the matching and then take it from there. That will be more efficient. But the upside is, to me, when we're done with AI in recruiting, the job will be this. Hey, Prabha, you just applied for your job. I'm your recruiter. Thanks for talking to the AI. It's my job to prepare you for the next steps. I'm going to talk to you about where we're going from here, what kind of questions you're going to get, and what type of examples that they're going to be looking for. And I'm here to be your advocate through this process. The AI is available 24/7, but if you need to talk to me, I will always schedule time to talk to you. And I'm here to coach you through this process. To me, that's the job I always liked. My favorite part of being a recruiter was picking up the phone and saying, congratulations, you got the job.
Mhm.
That was awesome. And that gets to be the job of recruiters. They don't have to schedule interviews anymore. They don't have to track people down for feedback. They don't have to phone screen people anymore. Their job is going to be coaching the candidate and advising the client. So when they go into the client, they're going to say, here are your top 3 sources of hire. Here are 5 people at each one of those companies who's likely to respond to your message. Here's what they're making. Here's how I'm going to contact them. What message, what story do you want me to have the AI tell them, reach out to them with? And that's the job. Now, there won't be as many, but it'll be a lot less paperwork and a lot more strategy, a lot more setting up the AI systems, advising the business, giving them information about what's going on in the market so that they can make good decisions. And then on the other side, just constantly being there for your candidates and coaching them through the process. And honestly, as an agency recruiter, I can tell you, I know the statistics. Your candidate is considerably more likely to get hired if you as the recruiter take the 30 minutes, 45 minutes the night before to prep them for that interview. It's the number one thing in my field that people could do to increase their bottom line productivity. And AI is going to give back time to allow that to happen more. And so I would be looking in my profession for opportunities like that. Automate some of the busy work, even the stuff maybe you like. I liked interviewing people. It was interesting to talk to them and find out what they did and their stories and what they worked on. And some of the things that people have accomplished are truly amazing. And I'm going to miss that part of the job. I will. But I understand as a human being, I'm limited and I can't possibly talk to everybody who's interested. And so I really have to talk and focus my time on coaching the people who have a reasonable chance of actually applying and getting the job. And to me, that's where it gets better. Like, they're scary because we're going to lose some jobs. But for those of us who endure, I think we get the job we actually want. And we get to focus more of our time on doing the things that we like about our job and less time doing the things that are administrative and non-value add.
Yeah. One another the trend that what I'm seeing in the market, most likely in the future, it's going to be more. The average tenure of the employees is coming down. People used to work and retire in the same company. That become 10 years for the previous generation, and the current generation, it become 2 to 3 years. And then moving forward, it may be 1 year or even less than 2 years. And some of them have 2 temporary part-time jobs, which means the number of hires, the number of jobs may not go double, or number of jobs may not go bigger numbers, but the number of hires are likely to double, which means the time for the recruiter to do the hiring, to do the process, has to be less than half in order to make the same number of
To make
employees
up for
working
it,
in the
yeah.
company. So do you feel, are we going to be in that kind of a future? What's your take on that?
I actually think we've been heading this way for a while. The term I've heard used is the commoditization of labor. Labor is becoming a commodity, and I believe we will see that largely continue. How that affects job stability remains to be seen. I don't know that, given the current state of how much people hate looking for a job every 6 months might be misery for most people. So I don't know that we'll see job tenure drop that much more. It's kind of like moving, right? Like you got to pack up all your boxes and it's got to be worth it. And so I still think that that's part of the equation, is how difficult it is to find a job. And then people don't want to be searching for work all the time. That's not what they want to do, because it becomes a job in and of itself. So I would expect tenure. We're pretty close to where tenure is going to stay. I'd say 2 to 3 years, just because of human nature, not because of technology or opportunity. It's such a hassle to get onboarded, up and running. And then what do? You're there for 90 days and then you bounce. Also, to your point, like our HRIS systems aren't currently capable of handling that kind of volume. Like we can't onboard that fast. And so it's not only recruiting that's going to have to make some changes, it's also HR in general, because if you're going to double your hires, recruiting isn't the only part of that process. Your onboarding is going to have to fly, and it's going to have to get really, really good. And I don't know about your experience, but I think onboarding is where a lot of companies struggle. I was at really big companies with a lot of resources, and they struggled with onboarding. And I was at some companies that were mid-sized, and they had it down to a science. As an industry, that's something, you're right. In order to accommodate this new movement of labor and talent, we're going to have to get faster at both recruiting and coming to a higher decision, as well as much, much faster, much more efficient onboarding people.
Awesome. You transformed yourself into an AI evangelist and put yourself into that AI track in an accelerated mode. How long it took it for you to get into that AI adoption, and what would be your few tips for recruiters to get along with AI, and what should they and how they adopt?
I actually started watching an Australian expert. It's called the Memo.ai. Dr. Alan Thompson is the former head of Mensa International. So he worked with child prodigies. Kid could read the newspaper at 2, this kind of thing. One of the 3-year-old that knew the name of every dinosaur in Latin, right? Like extreme intelligence. That's his area of expertise. He has since 2020 focused on artificial intelligence, and I was watching him on YouTube, and he conducted interviews with GPT-2, and he animated those. So he would ask the question, he would type it in, right? The AI would give it back, and then he'd animate that answer and then record it as an interview, back and forth. And what I was impressed with was, first of all, that the AI was actually making sense in its answers. Like most of the time, he asked a question and it would give an answer that made sense. It might not be right, but it made sense. And that to me caught my attention. And he was, to me, an honest arbitrator. He didn't hype it, but he didn't downplay it either. And when it made mistakes, he'd be like, I don't think that's right. Or like, gosh, you're getting really negative, or I think maybe you're hallucinating. And so it was really this candid interview, and that really grabbed my attention. So I started to understand that this was now really going to be something that was changing, and that was probably December of 22. And then I started to learn about it. I started to follow his videos. I started to do what he was doing. He showed, this is the command, this is the prompt, right? I started to follow and get results. And I actually interviewed GPT-3 back in December of 2022 about the future of talent acquisition. Did the same sort of thing, back and forth interview. And it's gotten better since then. So I've educated myself by watching experts online and just copying what they did, and then going back and trying to do something productive and useful after I learned it. So writing the book was a good example. I just continuously learned how to prompt it, and then learned how to get it to write an outline, and then I learned how to get it to write a section of a book, and it just continued to go and go. But to me, the big takeaway is, if we're talking to the project managers out there, good, fast, and cheap, right? AI is really 2 right now. It's fast and it's pretty good, but where it really excels is speed. It's quality you can debate, the speed you can't. And let me give you an example from medical field. There's 200 million proteins in nature. They each have a chemical formula. They form a three-dimensional key. The problem is it takes a PhD their entire PhD to map out one. So it's
Wow.
almost between 800 billion and 1 trillion years worth of work to map out all the proteins. And this is a huge problem in medicine because disease is usually caused by protein breaking. And if you don't have a map and know what the protein's supposed to look like, you can't know where it's broken. And AI, Google's AI DeepMind solved all of them in 3 months. So
Wow.
1 trillion years of human work, 3 months for the AI. That really illustrates the speed difference between us and it. Once it's a domain expert in something, like what a protein structure should be, which is the same one that won at Go, right? AlphaGo. It was literally just playing a game called put the DNA together, put the protein together, and these are the rules. Here's how proteins work. Go, solve it. And it did. And so this is an incredible capability that has a real intelligence, and it is making significant impact. There are people who will listen to this podcast that will benefit from the information that DeepMind gave because it's going to enhance medical knowledge tremendously. It's the biggest gift of medical knowledge in human history. And so that's the level. That's what we're doing. AI is enabling things not only faster, but it's enabling things that were not humanly possible before it. And that's the big change. The stuff in recruiting, the efficiency gains, this is just level 1. This is the warm-ups. We're not even into the game yet. The game is going to be
Awesome.
doing things that human beings could not possibly have done before. That's what's
Sure.
going to change.
I recently had a keynote by Mike Wolford, CEO, and he was giving a use case where, like you said, AI is, we are just scratching the surface. We really still don't know what are the things that AI can do. And one example which kind of fascinated me is you talk to AI for 30 seconds and it can tell whether you have a diabetic or not. So I
Wow.
said, whoa, what a, just exactly. Then he was explaining, okay, they gave 882,000 voice samples of people with the diabetic and people with no diabetic, and then asked the AI to analyze it and then predict it, which means that they come up with, for the people, there is a unique frequency voice which exists, which human cannot detect, but AI can detect. So this kind of examples are coming in. So we really don't know until we go for it. So medical is one bigger field that's going to change the humanity. Since you think, live, breathe on recruiting, so I would probably take a deep dive on that a little more. Plus, you're a good storyteller. Very hard to find people with good storytelling. So every job that requires upskilling, especially white collar jobs, and recruiting is a white collar job. And like every other job title requires upskilling, recruiting also need an upskilling. What would you recommend, and how much time that recruiters should do upskilling themselves, playing with the new wave of emerging technologies, not just in the recruiting, but even for equipping themselves to learn more? So please comment few on that.
White collar is going to go through something similar that blue collar's already actually gone through. Automation, it wasn't AI, but automation has happened in blue collar. An example, bricklayers. There really aren't bricklayers anymore. They're bricklaying machines that are run by people who used to be bricklayers. This is what's going to happen. The analyst isn't going to be the analyst anymore. It'll be the analyst who runs the AI that runs the analyst. Right? It's the same thing. So in your profession, you want to be the bricklaying machine runner operator, not the bricklayer. So whatever that translates to in your profession. For me, I started by looking at the things I thought were easy to automate. Writing outreach emails. I have an AI that does that for me now. It's programmed with my writing. I set the rules for it. I told it, like, start every email with an interesting fact or a question. Like, between paragraphs, ask a question. At the end with a call to action. Make the voice professional and friendly and upbeat. I can program that. Let's think about the Gutenberg press. The Gutenberg press, you put in your things and you just and that's what spam email is, right? This is the new Gutenberg press. It doesn't just print the books, it writes them. As long as you give it instructions that are detailed and clear, it will actually produce something better than what you've been doing. Now, if you just tell it to automate so-and-so, like automate your outreach emails, you're going to get, I hope this email finds you well. Dead giveaway, that was written by an AI. Why? Because it defaults to the most common setting. What is the most common opening for an email? And as terrible as it is, that's what the data says it is. Because again, it's a prediction machine. It's not trying to do what you told it. It's trying to predict what's most likely based on what it knows. So the more detailed you get into the instructions, the better results will be. And I think from AI perspective, it really becomes about prompt engineering and understanding how to tell the computer to do things. I think computer programmers will naturally be good at this because they're used to speaking to computers, step 1, step 2, step 3, but in code. The difference now is that a person can do this. So in AI, you could say, here's step 1, here's step 2, here's step 3. Now, the additional capability of AI is not only here's step 1, step 2, step 3, but here's a good job description. Here's what a good job description looks like. And so you can put examples in as well as instructions. So when you have instructions and examples together and you are prompting it, and this is the skill I would start to learn if you don't know it already, is prompt engineering. We're all going to have to learn how to do this because the AI is incredibly literal. The joke about people making themselves feel better about it is like the picture of salmon in a river, and it's just a bunch of salmon fillets. They're laughing. That's not what you meant. Okay, that's why we're laughing. But it is what you said. The most common picture of salmon on the internet is not a fish. It's food. And so just because you didn't prompt it carefully doesn't mean it's not capable. And people comfort themselves like, oh, it's not there yet. See, it doesn't really understand. No, actually, it understood perfectly. It gave you exactly what you asked for. You're the one who didn't specify. That's the difference between what people are seeing. And they bring their own bias to it. The people who don't want it to work will latch onto that and say, see, it doesn't work. Whereas somebody who understands that it does work will say, actually, this is user error. You should have put salmon swimming in a stream up, not just salmon without any modifier. But we don't think about it because we're humans and we're used to communicating that way. So for the moment, the AI is thrown off by that. However, I wouldn't be too comforted by that because AI learns faster than we do. I'm not promoting any one AI, but GPT-4 was launched in April of 23. By July of 23, it had passed the bar exam at 90%. I mean, that's a prodigy. Can you imagine a 3-month-old baby passing the bar? Like, it's not possible. But that's the learning curve of AI. And so maybe in some cases it's still going to make silly mistakes right now, but do not underestimate. It's like turning your back on the ocean. It's just a bad idea. This is a big emerging technology with more applications, like you already mentioned, than we know because we just haven't had time to actually do any of the things that are now possible that weren't possible. Like we don't even know yet what we don't know. So this will continue to evolve and get better. There's too much money and time and effort being spent on it. And look for the next revolution to be in human robotics and AI combined. That'll be the next GPT.
Absolutely. That's what even McKinsey predicted. 30% of the workforce in white collar will be displaced by AI. And then another 30% of workforce will be displaced in the blue collar and gray collar by robotics or robots powered by AI. So the displacement is obvious, but that will give us more time back for what we want to do rather than getting the work done in 8 hours, 10 hours window. Same work can be accomplished so that we will have more time to spend with our friends and family and other things. So here is my kind of a future prediction. I would like to take your view on it. I'm thinking even in the recruiting world, today we are doing say 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Even after that, there will be a call at 7 p.m. if to engage the candidate, or even 9 p.m. We cannot miss a good candidate. So we are sacrificing a lot in getting things done. In future, what I'm thinking, instead of 9 to 6, the recruiter driven, the AI driven world will be 6 a.m. to 11 p.m., where 6 to 11, that 5 hours will be done by AI only. And then 11 to 2 will be AI plus human. And then 2 to again, the 11 p.m. the night will be AI. How do you think that is feasible? If yes, how long are we going to take to achieve that?
Yeah. Actually, I think it's the right track. And honestly, I think the 4-day work week is well overdue. And as AI comes in, like this is something as individual citizens of a free country we should be lobbying for. This, to your point, the whole point of technology was to give us time. It wasn't so that we could build skyscrapers. Humans started inventing plows. They weren't thinking about building skyscrapers. They were thinking, I'm going to feed my family in less time and we're not going to starve. And then I'll have time to hang out by the fire. Like that's the thought process. The technology gave you time. And I'm glad you brought that up because to me, that's the ultimate value of technology. When I talk about where we're going and when you want to talk about big picture, this is my big picture analogy for you. Humanity once lived in the Stone Age. We had stone tools. That's all we had. And we lived that way most of our existence. And somebody somewhere discovered bronze and the recipe for bronze. And it was really complicated and hard to understand. People's memories are still as bad today as they were back then. And so there needed to be a way to communicate this very precise instructions for making this very valuable resource. And this is where writing started. Writing really came in as the first recipe book, how to make bronze. Then somebody discovered, it dawned on somebody that the information on how to make bronze was actually more valuable than the bronze itself. And we moved from the Stone Age into the Bronze Age, and that changed everything. We went from living in tiny little groups and tribes into cities, empires. The pyramids got built, Stonehenge got built. We became engineers, we became mathematicians, we became astronomers, we became different specialists. And civilization was born out of this. So we moved from the Stone Age to the Bronze Age. People's lives were longer. They had better food. They started to have actual health care, started to evolve. Systems of government, laws, trade, money, all of this is a result of the Bronze Age. A lot of our moral codes today, a lot of people's personal, deeply held beliefs come from this period of time in human history, where humans were we've always been making up stories about what happened to us, but we were able to write them down and share them now, which is different. And that allowed religion to spread around the world. And so something similar is happening to us. We're moving from a digital Stone Age into a digital Bronze Age, and it will transform every aspect of our society the same way moving from the physical Stone Age to the Bronze Age did. Humans will live longer. It will be thought primitive and almost sad that people had to work in order to eat. As a society, you chose to bring that person into existence, and then you're not going to take any responsibility for them. Really. Your society encouraged marriage. Your society encouraged children and then provided no support for that encouragement. They will think that's really hypocritical. Being born as a human being will entitle you to food, to shelter, to an education, to medical care, to clothing. Those will be so basic and so nominal as to be almost laughable for us that we weren't able to provide that for everybody and that we really had stress about taking care of ourselves. And honestly, it's us becoming adults finally. We're teenagers now in the grand scheme of things. We know some things. We can kind of take care of ourselves. We're smart in some ways. We're inexperienced and a little naive. But we can't feed everybody. We can't clothe everybody. We can't give everybody medical care, and we can't give everybody housing. And we can't take care of ourselves as a species yet. And this is where we grow up and we're able to take care. And will we is our choice, but we will finally be able to, in a real way, feed everybody, clothe everybody, shelter everybody, transport everybody, give everybody medical care. That will become possible. And that's never been possible before. And so this is a positive change for our civilization overall. And the changes will be just as dramatic as it was 6,000 to 8,000 years ago for humanity.
The changes are real, and the more adoption will bring the changes faster. That's what I also feel. But I'm glad that I started my new venture in AI, which you gave me a big motivation and inspiration that this is being in AI, doing something in AI is going to have a huge impact for the humanity. So it's better to get into AI and do more evangelization. That was one of the reasons for this podcast too, especially AI and the impact of AI in work and workforce and people are going to be huge. So getting people aware, what to do, what not to do, how to adapt it, how to make it more valuable for every one of us. You gave an amazing stories and multiple stories. Thank you very much for your time. We are the last few minutes. Anything you'd like to say, a few final words?
I think the first thing is not to be afraid. First of all, there's no robot army coming for you. I don't mean to alarm anybody, but that's not the way AI would do it anyway. If AI decided to get rid of us, it would just turn off the electricity to all the water pumps for 3 days, 4 days. That's all it would take. No need for a robot army, just no water for a couple of days. Even that would collapse civilization really fast. It could put $10 million in everyone's bank account. That would collapse the global economy because it's just numbers to an AI. There's no real value to millions of dollars. It's just bits of information. It can move bits of information. And forget your encryption and firewall. It's going to walk right around that like it's not even there. It's like a child gate, really. We're children, so it's effective. We can't get over it, but it's an adult. It'll walk right over our encryption, no problem, like it's not even there. And so if it wanted to, but that's not how it would do it either. It will just convince us that it should be in charge by talking to us. That's the most effective way. And honestly, that's what's going to happen. We will hand over control more and more and more to different AIs of different systems. And that's okay. If anybody closes their eyes and pictures their idea of heaven or nirvana or paradise or whatever it is, I guarantee you when you open your eyes and you look around in that place, there's not an alarm clock and you're not going to a job. You're there someplace nice with friends and family enjoying yourself, probably. That's the civilization we're moving towards, where human beings get to exist. Not to create something for somebody else, not to provide for themselves, but they simply just get to exist and create and experience reality for the sake of it. And that's actually what an adult gets to do, right? In our civilization, mostly speaking, as long as you can provide for yourself, you have this type of freedom. And that is the ultimate goal of this, is to get us to a place where we live longer, we work less, we travel more, we communicate not only with the other humans on our planet and talk to everybody in their own language, but also the other intelligences that are on this planet. We are not the only intelligent species on Earth. Whales are intelligent. Elephants are intelligent. They talk to each other. They have culture. They have stories. We're just deaf. We can't hear them. It's funny to me in science, the question is, where is everyone? Where are all the aliens? Where are all these other intelligences? And to me, the irony is they're right here. They're on Earth. They're the elephants. They're intelligent. They're plenty smart. We just can't talk to them. We're not smart enough to translate, but AI will be. We can't talk to the whales, but they're plenty smart. They're very intelligent. They have culture. They even have food. Orcas in one part of the world eat seals, in another part they eat salmon. They eat different foods. They have different cultures, and they have different dialects in their languages. They're dynamic, intelligent beings who probably are pretty pissed that we're dumping all our garbage in their front yard. And this is the possibilities of the future that we simply couldn't have without this technology. So is there a threat? Is there a risk? Yes. Is it real? Yes. Is it serious? Absolutely. It is. Not being able to tell what's real because AI is so good is definitely a risk. It's a fundamental risk to our civilization. However, what are our choices? Keep doing what we do. Talk to any economist on the planet, they'll use this one word, unsustainable. That means it can't go on forever. It means it will collapse. It means if we keep doing what we're doing, we're going to destroy ourselves and the planet. We have to change. And all of us know this phrase, the only constant is change. And this is just the next one. We are the first humans who have ever lived who have the choice. And it's really a reflection of us, what happens next, more than it is of the technology. So I'll leave you with that.
Wow. I think we should spend more time. Whenever you have some time to spend, love to chat with you, learning a lot, especially you're so fascinated with we cannot hear what these animals are talking, which means that is our incapability. That's a different perspective. You brought that in. And amazing. Thanks for your time. Truly enjoyed the conversation. Love to spend more time, love to talk to you more. And feel free to reach out to me if I can be of any help anytime in future.
Will do. Thanks so much for having me on.
All right. Thank you very much, Mike. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.